music block.
What do you call the music we play? Like, you listen to the station.
That's just usually go by alternative.
So you still use alternative?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is easy because it's a common term.
Right.
I think it's, yeah, it's the best description.
Yeah. And can you give a brief history on the genre and its development over the years?
I think Spud kind of covered that.
Yeah.
I think he established
I tried
that
to
with
at least.
K-Rock, and so.
But I would like to say, you know, so when Live on the 5 started, we were playing a lot of more the new wave and punk and kind of indie rock bands at the time, bands like R.E.M., The Replacements. And, you know, over time, the format has just kind of, you know, changed and adapted. And, you know, at one point we were playing more like a lot of British bands. Another point we were playing more like ska bands. We even played swing bands, like in the mid-90s.
It kind of goes in waves.
You know, then grunge hit. Grunge is basically just rock from Seattle. Right?
Yeah, metal and punk and like sort of like a melting pot of different rock just put into one.
I think, you know, when we hear a lot of these bands, we just kind of make the decision of, will our audience accept it on the station, you know? And that's, when we program a radio station, we want to play, you know, the most amount of songs that the most amount of people will really like. So, you know, in terms of, is it rock, is it alternative? Basically, you know, I've heard some people say, oh, let's just call it Live 105 music. Let's define it ourselves, you know? But I think it can always go back to the same notion of we play new music first, you won't hear it anywhere else, and it's just different from the mainstream top 40 stations.
Even the top 40 kind of follows. You know, like they picked up like Modest Mouse and Green Day, and, you know, a lot of these, even AFI is top 40.
Yeah.
So I mean, a lot of the bands that we played first, of course, like AFI, like this, and Green Day, we've been huge supporters of those bands since the very beginning. You know.
We played the Coldplay and the Killers first too, you know, and
Yeah,
we hardly call those really rock bands, but
they all cross over. So they're in the top 40, but usually they start in alternative.
okay.
If you were to choose one band that represents alternative best, what would it be and why?
One band?
One band. I could safely say Nirvana, and I would choose that band because they didn't create grunge, but they sure did make it popular. They were like There's something about Kurt Cobain. I don't know if it was his songwriting or if it was his lyrics that he wrote, but there was something that was captivating about that band that just je ne sais quoi. I really don't know, but I mean, that's one of my favorite bands, and I really think that if alternative was around before, like, I think it was really solidified, you know, in like 1991 when the grunge explosion really took off. I really think that that's what solidified alternative as a real format for radio. So,
Good answer.
And what's your targeted audience here at Live 105?
In general, basically people 18 to 34, maybe a little more male on the male side.
So me 50, I'm gone.
it of course goes older. I mean, we had what is it, the 21st birthday, like earlier this year? It was this year, or was it last year? It was last year.
Yeah.
And you'd get a lot of people that were like, you know, hey, I listened to the Quake when, you know, the Quake was around, and that's, you know, 30 years, you know, and you had to be 16, 17, so I mean, there you go, you got like a 45-year-old, you know, man listening to Live 105 to this day, you know, the fact that they like, you know, Depeche Mode, and now they really like the Killers, you know, that's kind of cool. So.
We have a lot of people under 18 too who listen to the station, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, when you ask like what our target demo is, that's more of a sales thing of, you know, who we're trying to sell to. But, you know, obviously anybody of any age can listen to Live 105 and they dig the music.
Do you feel that the 18 to 34 group is the majority of the audience that listens to it now?
Yeah, definitely. That's how we know that, because with that age group we get our best ratings.
Well, they also don't do ratings for anybody under 18 anyways, so. I mean,
PPM does.
do they?
Yeah,
They'll give a PPM to a 12-year-old?
they will.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not
I
know
think
that.
even younger.
Wow. That's fascinating. I didn't know that.
When you think alternative, what image or dress style comes to mind?
That.
It's changed, you know, like, it goes with the style and what the, sort of like the driving sound is, you know, like right now, there's, like a big Britpop explosion, you know, so you have all the, like the scenester sort of hipster kids. I mean, you fit the description, like, perfectly, you know, it's like, it's hard to define, too, because, I mean,
I think too these days, you know, you think of bands like AFI and My Chemical Romance that have been pretty big with us in the last couple of years. You know, you go into a place like Hot Topic and they're obviously doing something right, you know,
yeah,
with a lot of kids
or
dig that style.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think, you know, again, the punk rock attitude is just do what you feel is right, you know, and that's...
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what alternative's all about. It's like, you know, doing what you want, but sometimes doing what you want ends up being doing what other people were already doing, so...
A lot of times I'm surprised you'll meet someone who, you know, who just look like, you know, dresses normal haircut, and, you know, then they know a lot about live and live music, so I feel like you can never really stereotype or second guess,
Yeah.
you know, with someone like
I've
you.
met some people that, like, were very... Like, once you get sort of out to, like, Walnut Creek or something like that, like, where people are very suburban, you know, they don't dress the part because pretty much fashion comes from urban areas. You know, that's what drives, you know, fashion, sound tastes, that, you know, major metropolitan areas. So once you get out to, like, Walnut Creek, you have guys that, you know, t-shirt and jeans, you know, and they don't even look like they would know anything, but yet they have, like, this vast knowledge of, like, crazy Live 105, you know, fanatics. And it's just the craziest thing I've ever seen.
What are some common topics of alternative music songs today?
Okay? Common topics of alternative rock songs these days. I don't know if it's changed that much.
I think the topics have always been politics, women, drugs,
Relationships. And then you have MGMT.
sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You know, MGMT is all about drugs. I don't know who really paid attention, but they, yeah, sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Has alternative created a new American identity, and can you explain some aspects of it?
But that's an in-depth question. I think that, like, if you go back, I think that it really, I don't know if it's an American identity, because, I mean, if you go back to punk rock, you know, who was first, Ramones or the Sex Pistols, you know, who was first, you know, there really is no, I don't think there's a real answer to that. I think that, like, it's been pretty universal.
I would say, though, that between this country and the UK, it kind of goes back and forth, and each side kind of influences the other, which kind of goes back to the 60s, you know, between
Elvis,
the Beatles and Elvis
Stones.
and the Stones and the Beach Boys. And I think today, too, you got a lot of, you know, American bands listening to British bands, and that'll affect their style, and then you got a lot of British bands listening to American bands, you know. We get a lot of magazines here, and we'll look at, like, the British press, and, you know, they'll have, like, My Chemical Romance on the cover, or Linkin Park. And
Sometimes it's hard to figure out where the band is from, you know, you can't, like, are they UK or are they from the US? Like, when I first heard the Killers, I was like, that is such an awesome UK band from Vegas.
yeah.
Like, really? Like, oh man, I totally, they had me fooled when I first, like, was introduced to them. I totally thought they were a new band.
With all these elements of different genres used in alternative, do you think it has a bigger and more open audience compared to other genres?
Do you mean other radio formats? Or
Or other styles of music?
Like other genres and styles?
Well,
Well, you could say that